Welcome to Amra's Armchair Anecdotes. I'm Amra Pajalich, writer, teacher and storyteller. Pull up a chair and let's dive into stories about writing, life and lessons learned, sharing wisdom from my armchair to yours. You can find the episode show notes, your free episode handouts and my how-to guides at amrapajalich.com/podcast. And now it's time to dive in. Welcome to Amra's Armchair Anecdotes. Today's guest is Krystle, a queer disabled poet and editor based on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. In 2025, Krystle won the June Shenfield National Poetry Award, and her work has appeared in Australian and international journals. Her first poetry collection, Mythology Mechanic, was published while she was still an undergraduate, an experience that shaped her early relationship with literary success, visibility, and voice. Krystle describes poetry as a space where precision and ambiguity, structure and chaos can exist at the same time. And I think this tension sits at the heart of both art and identity. In this conversation, we're going to talk about the emotional reality of writing poetry, pressure of recognition, navigating literary spaces as a queer and disabled writer, and why poetry still matters in a world increasingly shaped by speed, algorithms, and certainty. Krystle, welcome to Amra's Armchair Anecdotes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, not a problem. I actually really like that part about, a world shaped by speed, algorithms, and certainty, because there's so much pressure now with all of the different things that we do about metrics and measuring our success and measuring our impact.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that as an artist because I'm like, well, we don't know. That doesn't really give us a honest reflection.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how immediate, we want to receive everything now. So that's my real love of poetry. We kind of have to slow down and take our time. It's not as though we're presenting anything different or new, but maybe we're kind of just taking that pause to concentrate on a moment rather than quickly shifting into, what's next.
Yeah, I'm finding that the more I'm sort of getting into this creative journey and the more I'm trying different things, I'm getting over those metrics because it's the lovely surprises that happen that really make you think I'm doing something that matters. And those you can't plan for. It's not the number of views on anything. So I just wanted to start sort of with identity, voice and being read publicly. And you're very open in your bio about being queer and disabled. I'm just wondering, was there ever any hesitation about making these identities publicly visible as part of your literary profile?
Yeah, I don't think I ever felt any real hesitation in being open about living as a queer disabled writer. It's the lens through which I see the world. So it shapes how I move through everything. So, of course, it shapes how I write. I think it's important to be open about those things because I kind of live at the intersection of two identities that are still quite underrepresented in literature. I think, I like my work to hold that complexity and joy and humanity rather than treating them as something that needs to be hidden.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're crying out for these days. We really want that authenticity and that sense of hearing different perspectives and engaging with artists of, that's the whole point of art. I want to hear or read something that's different from me and that's giving me something new.
Yeah, well, I think that's where we're quite lucky now because we are seeing a lot of different voices come out. I mean, we are quite lucky in the sense that you can walk out your front door and people may not be upfront about it, but a lot of people say, oh yeah, I write. So that's what I love.
Yeah.
There are so many different stories out there at the moment and people want to tell them.
Even I just bought the book that won the Booker Prize, and it's set in Albania. Like, I haven't read it yet, but I saw it pop up on my feed and I read the blurb and I'm like, this is fascinating. This is what I want. I want more interesting stories and things that I don't know and the world surprising me still.
Exactly right. Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I'm really excited to get hold of I cannot remember the author's name, the book that recently won the Stella.
I haven't heard about that one. What's that one?
It's a graphic novel, and I don't have a lot of experience with graphic novels. So, yeah, I'm quite excited.
Yeah. I kind of get to see a lot of graphic novels because I'm a teacher, so I see a lot of my students reading and engaging. So I've read a few and engaged a little bit. Yeah, but that's the other thing, like reading those different mediums and getting that different, I don't know, just different ideas, different ways of looking at things. I just wanted to sort of move a little bit in terms of the creative practice. And one of the things that I think that's happening is we talk a lot more about representation, and we see people trying to program, literary festivals, for example, or in different spaces, trying to program for diversity and for those things. And I was just wondering if you had something that you wanted to offer in terms of advice about able-bodied literary spaces, that what do they misunderstand about writers who are dealing with a disability that you think might be important to use this as a forum to talk about?
Yeah, no, we are definitely seeing, steps made towards making these spaces more inclusive, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, it's still very slow. Because I think a lot of able-bodied literary spaces really underestimate how much extra labor disabled writers are already doing. Accessibility is still treated as an accommodation rather than a basic requirement. So we are frequently the ones expected to identify the barriers and then advocate for all of those solutions.
Yes.
This isn't just something we're seeing in person, even social media call outs for submissions and competitions. So many of them are lacking, image descriptors and alt text. So it kind of sends a message about who they expect to participate and who they expect to kind of have to ask for access.
Yeah, that's a good point because you get complacent, because I remember at one point I was really making an effort with image descriptions, and then, as per usual, you get complacent, start sort of forgetting, but that is part of that accessibility, and as a publisher, I'm seeing it now where when uploading on retail platforms, it is asking about texts being described, if there's any texts inside, having that alt text to make it more accessible.
Yeah, I think it's really important because, I mean, writing is such a solitary act, but sharing writing, I mean, it's right there, sharing. We want to be inclusive, bring everyone into the fold.
Yeah. And there's like so many things that we can do individually. And yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to start really focusing on my alt text, because it is also about modeling. Like if I do it, then other people will see it, then other people will do it. And it becomes that, way forward where everyone is taking responsibility for the community and we're
Exactly
working
right.
towards something.
Yeah, even I'm guilty of, not using it as much as I should myself, but I'm trying to make a real effort. Even things on Instagram and Facebook, to just to make them accessible. And then it becomes, something you always do.
Yeah, yeah. At one point, I was really good at it, I have to say, and then I just really dropped off. So it's a good reminder, I think, for these. This is why it's important to talk to people who are different than
Yeah.
us and learn and keep being reminded of it. I wanted to move on a little bit about because you published young, undergraduate, and your first poetry collection. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah, it was quite a different journey in the sense that it was a startup imprint and they approached me looking to publish
That's
my
so
collection.
exciting.
Yeah, it was very cool. It wasn't something I expected. I was kind of, I think at the time, very quiet, very shy. Poetry was something I did in silence type of thing. So I think that kind of helped me because I wasn't really expecting much from it. I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. I think more than surprises, it's about what I've learnt since then. I think in my mind, because I was 23 when that happened, when that first book came out. And I thought, okay, once the book's done, it's done, I'm done, it's out in the world, the readers will come. That's not how it works.
Yes.
That's not how it works.
No, promotion is such a big part and they expect us to do so much.
Exactly right. It's all about promotion. It's all about, advocating for your work and putting it out there. There are so many books coming out every single day, every single week, and most of them come out to very little fanfare. So it's up to us to kind of advocate and find the shelf space for our work.
How have you navigated that space? What are some things that you've been doing or that you found that you enjoy or that you're like, maybe not?
Again, I was very bad at it when I was young. I was very shy and I didn't want to put myself out there, which is difficult because it is a big part of being a writer. We all have this image of the solitary writer kind of doing their thing, releasing their book. And it's not. We do have to almost be our own biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly
And
learning.
I've had to, yeah, it's hard. I've had to sort of take the pressure off and go, I am not promoting. I'm just sharing.
That's
I'm
right.
sharing what I'm doing. I'm sharing how I'm going because as soon as you put that promoting and that marketing, you feel a bit sleazy
Yes. That is a
and you
perfect
feel a
word
bit
for it,
like,
sleazy.
oh, yeah. You're like, buy my book, but buy my book. But I'm only doing this because I want you to buy my book. It's terrible. But I mean, it is also necessary. I've sort of started thinking about it as building relationships and building community. How have you find that in terms of the poetry world and finding a community and finding connections?
It's interesting again because finding those connections in the poetry world, again, I come up against, those accessibility barriers. A lot of,
Mhm.
poetry is being in the community and going to open mic nights. And if you're lucky, getting those offers for feature spots. As a disabled person, I can't take all of those opportunities. There are times where my body, you know, can't do those things, or even, perhaps an environment just doesn't suit my needs.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And sometimes also like you think, well, you might break yourself almost, psychologically to make something work, but if you're not actually able to enjoy it and really bring that, passion and that spirit to it because of the fact that you're not accommodated and it doesn't work. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm learning to be kinder to myself. You know how in the beginning you're like, yes, yes, of course, yes. Now I'm like, let me get back to you.
That is one of the key things that I keep, saying to myself, be kinder to yourself. The allowances and the space you give other writers, why aren't you turning that in on yourself?
Yeah, there's something about when it comes to us where we're much harder, but we can sort of show empathy. I'm loving all these things on social media that are showing up where therapy in 1 minute. And I watch it and I'm like, "Oh, yes." And that's one of the ones where it's like, well, if you're really showing empathy to everyone else but not to yourself, are you? Are you empathetic or are you a people pleaser?
Okay, you give me a lot to think about now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It hit hard. It hit hard, I have to say. Not that I'm really a people pleaser, but just, you kind of, the way you talk to yourself, it's different to the way you might talk to other people. And so doing that self-talk, I've actually started like, there's something about midlife also where you just start having conversations with yourself and it's like, these are the best conversations ever. I am the best audience. But yeah, like actually articulating it and going, no, let's be calm now. So yeah, it's a process. Do you think that, because you were so young in terms of being published, was there pressure to prove yourself or, did it create some friction for you, some lessons learned that you look back on and you're like, I wish I knew?
Wish at that time I had the confidence in myself as a writer to push the book more. I think that's the biggest thing. I was very proud. I still am very proud of the book I produced. It was a work that was very true to me and my journey at that stage. But I think the biggest thing I've learned, especially because I have had quite a dramatic pause between collections, has to resist that idea to need to be constantly performing at a certain level. you know, a certain output to justify the fact that I have been published.
Yeah, there is that pressure where it's like, oh, what are you doing now? What are you up to? And then we start doing that thing to ourselves where it's like, are you a writer? Are
Yes,
you really? So yeah, it's just these weird things that we do to ourselves. It's like, yes, I am a writer because I write. Therefore,
that's
I am.
exactly.
Yeah. Do you think that it's changed your writing, like since that first collection? In terms of, I feel like when we write before we're published, it's a little bit different than after we're published. There's a bit of a shift that happens.
Yeah, what I find interesting there is I do think there was a shift in my brain that I'm only kind of understanding now. But I think, it's been a positive shift in the sense that I feel much more comfortable in my voice now. I think at the time I was kind of worried, what makes me a poet? I don't sound like other poets. My stuff feels odd or different compared to what I'm, reading or seeing performed. So there was kind of some hesitation in sharing my voice there. But now I'm like, hey, those differences are why, I've had this journey and why I continue to, have these little successes.
And speaking of your successes, you won the 2025 June Shenfield National Poetry Award. So, what did this mean, this recognition to you personally? How did that impact?
The June Shenfield Award came at a really important time for me as a writer and as a person. As you're aware, yeah, I identify someone with a disability, both physically and I have, mental health issues that have impeded my writing journey. I am agoraphobic. And I hadn't left my house in a decade prior to 2025. So I kind of made a decision at the start of 2025, to start making small steps out of the house. And part of that was I made a deal with myself that I had to do one scary thing a week. A friend of mine
I love it.
sent me the submission form for the June Shenfield, and I was like, well, I don't know what my scary thing is this week, so let's make it, submitting a poem. And yeah, it worked.
And I think that's the thing that people underestimate, which is I play the lotto every week, and I'm like, and I've won. The most I won at one point was $1,500 or $1,600, but I've gotten $25, $30, and it's like I play every week, and so sometimes you kind of need to approach submitting with that same feeling of, well, got to be in it to win it. Got to give it a shot.
Yeah.
So I love that that's what happened with you. Have you gotten braver since then where you've started submitting more?
Yes, I'm at a really nice balance at the moment of I try to jot down every submission window or every competition I see. But again, being kind to myself, you cannot apply or enter, everything. So, pick and choose, see where I might fit. So yeah, I'm definitely, since then I've had, a couple of publications and a couple of shortlisted things. So yeah, making those moves.
Yeah, because you got to always, like, I when I was doing freelance writing, I was always had pictures on the go. When I was submitting, always something on the go. Now, because I'm just focusing on generating my own little ecosystem in my own little place. But there are other things that I'm doing, which is, public speaking. So I have where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be pitching to these and this is what I'm going to be doing. So you've got to always this is the thing that, about being an artist, we've got to generate our own workflows, generate our own momentum. And it is a lot. What are the
Yeah.
things that kind of keep you recharged and keep you going through it?
I think what keeps me recharged, to keep trying is faith in the work itself. As long as I'm enjoying, creating it, then, put it out there and see what happens. As long as I'm happy and I'm feeling positive, then yeah, that's what matters most. Not award titles and I mean, those things are great. They are super appreciated and they feel amazing. But the work comes first.
And we can't depend on the awards. We kind of have to make it about our own, what is our version of success? What do we, value about this because you can't control what will connect, what won't connect. It's
Yeah, well, that's
work to get it out there. Yeah.
yeah, because I think it's important to remember that, literary recognition is so often about timing and subjectivity and opportunity, not just about, the merit of your work. So accepting that makes it easier to see validation as something meaningful, not necessarily definitive.
Mm. Yes. It's a big journey to get there, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. I don't think it kind of stops. I think you kind of learn that lesson and then you start, I don't know, falling for things and then you're like, don't do it. Anyway, that's my journey. Just constantly don't do it. Stop it.
Good
But you've
advice.
also been an editor, so you're a poet and an editor. Has editing made you harsher or kinder towards your own work? How do you think that influences it?
Yeah, I love editing poetry. I love poets of all levels. I want more people writing poetry. I think it's healthy. So I'm really grateful to the poets who have trusted me with their voice. But I know that I am my own worst client when it comes to editing. Because again, when you're looking at someone else's poetry, I can be patient and intuitive and really encouraging. But with my own work, I'm kind of over analyzing and second guessing everything that's on the page.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the eternal artist thing where, we kind of can appreciate other people's, but yeah, we do. I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, nah, just release. Don't second guess, just
Yeah.
release. Because I've been at it for a few decades and it's like, there's always something new, work on something new.
Yeah, and that's the problem. If you focus on your own work for too long, you could be holding on to it for decades.
Yes, yes.
So again,
And
it
holding
comes back to
yourself
kindness.
back from, yes, yeah. I think that's really the theme that's coming through. I wanted to shift a little bit to, poetry and the way that we're in this, speed algorithms and instant reactions. What is your view about why does poetry matter more? I actually think it matters more than ever, but I'd love to hear your point of view.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that poetry matters more, especially, it's a form that gives space for complexity and those feelings that we don't often get to explore because our culture so easily rewards immediacy and simplicity. I think poetry creates connection and, it's not driven by speed or performance, like, but that kind of attention and care to detail. Um, I like that poetry slows things down. Um, you know, I think the easiest way that I like to look at it is it's about reflection rather than reaction.
Whereas these days, a lot of those spaces are about reaction. And I think the other thing about poetry is today, we've got AI tools and I do use, AI tools to support some of the parts of my admin stuff that are dead boring. And I was recently having a conversation with my daughter and going, everything that I use AI for are still things that I can do myself. They just speed up some stuff. But poetry is the one thing that I'm going to make a claim here and say AI can never replicate a human poem and, expression because of the way that it is so original and so like in that moment. And so that's why I also think it kind of matters now. It's that genuine, original connection and that moment.
Yeah, I like that way of looking at it too, because AI is everywhere now. So it does feel nice that poetry as a form feels like almost one of the things we can still trust.
Yes, yeah, we know
Yeah.
that it ain't AI generated. No, unless it's hallucinating because, AI does hallucinate and it can be quite hysterical in the way that it does. So I just wanted to sort of move into some lessons and some advice that you might have. So what lesson do you think it took you the longest to learn as a writer? So you've talked a little bit about that promoting part of it. Have you learned to like what are you doing better there, or just in general any lessons?
Um, I mean, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is to stop measuring myself against the output of other writers. There are those writers that can sit down and pump out 10,000 words a day, and they can submit to every magazine call out or competition. They can get to every open mic night. But I'm not on the same journey that they are. I think for too long, I kind of measured my own success through the productivity benchmarks set by other people. So it left me kind of feeling inadequate as a writer. So yeah, I think
Mm,
the biggest lesson I've learned is that writing isn't a race.
no, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
It's a marathon. That's and that it's for the rest of our lives. That's just something I can really relate to also because that saying that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
It is so true because when we do that to ourselves, it doesn't matter what we're doing or what we're achieving. We are just constantly going, nah, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough.
Yeah.
And we've just got to be in competition with ourselves.
No, exactly right.
What
Because
would you say? Do you have something?
sorry.
No, no, go, go, go.
Um, yeah, I feel like, when you're comparing your voice and your output to the work of others, you're kind of losing that authenticity of your own voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that matters now more than ever, like having your own voice and
Yes.
having what you're doing that's different, that's unique, that represents you. What would you say that emerging poets waste too much energy worrying about?
I think the biggest thing emerging poets, maybe even, emerging writers as a whole, kind of, are wasting too much energy on is their work ready? People are like, "Oh no, I can't share this yet because it's not ready." Whatever that means to them. There's like this sense that their writing has to be at a certain level before it can be shared. And that's certainly not how poetry works. Yes, definitely, get that poem as punchy and as tight as you can, but share it in whatever way you can. If you've got a friend you trust, show them. If you've got the capacity, go to an open mic night. They are some of the most welcoming environments. And if you get up there and tell them it's your first time on stage, you're gonna walk out of there feeling like a rock star.
Yeah, yeah, because, writing spaces are very supportive because we've all been there. We've all
Yeah.
been in those positions, being the first and, doing it. What advice would you give to writers who are trying to build a creative life and they're navigating disability, burnout, or instability?
Yeah, I think the best bit of advice, and especially the best bit of advice I'm still trying to follow, is to stay attuned to your needs, both physically and mentally. Um, Again, output isn't everything,
Thank you for
but
tuning
but
in to Amra's
kindness to
Armchair
yourself is
Anecdotes.
really what
If you
matters.
enjoyed today's episode,
Um,
don't
you
forget to
know, I've
subscribe
finally
and
come to a
follow
stage with my
for more
writing
insight,
where
stories,
I've
and
recognized that
inspiration.
when I need to
From my
rest,
armchair to yours,
it's not a
remember,
failure.
every
That's a part
story
of my
begins with a
process.
single. Yeah. And what are you working on at the moment? What do you want to? Are you working on, presumably on another collection? Is there something that you
Yeah.
wanted to share?
Well, my first collection, Mythology Mechanic, will be getting a re-release sometime this year with a new independent publisher. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah. And I am currently working on my second collection, kind of at the stage where I'm editing, trying not to over edit. I'm pretty bad with just, finishing the work and then putting it away and jumping onto the next project. So yeah, a couple of other projects in the work as well.
Mm, And people who are interested in connecting with you, what are some spaces that you engage with that they can find you?
Yeah, I think I'm most engaged on Instagram. So that would be my handle is Krystle, Krystle underscore JADEH.
And I'll put that in the show notes so people can
Thank you.
connect with you there. Was there anything else that you wanted us to sort of talk about that you don't think that I've touched on or that you want to use this space for?
Just think that we need to really keep creating those spaces that are welcoming of disabled riders. This is kind of the hill I will die on. We have so many incredible riders who identify as living with disability. I was very fortunate to spend this month in a fellowship with a group of really talented riders whom identify as living with a disability. And again, the vast majority of us said that accessibility to space was the biggest issue in sharing our work.
Yeah, and that's true because I work in my day job as a teacher, and so I work with a lot of students. But having said that, I'm in a government school, and the students that we have are students who can cope to a certain extent with that whole machine that a school is. And so, we accommodate, but there's also really not much, not enough, but like we are learning about that. And as teachers, I'm loving the conversations that we're having where before it was all about controlling students and all of this. And now we're really thinking about how do we make education accessible? How do we provide resources that are accessible in terms of images, in terms of, bringing it to the different levels and providing that differentiation? And so it's wonderful to see because when I have written about being a teacher, I've had so many people write to me who had horrible experiences as students under the old regimes where they were just basically booted out, just kindly encouraged to leave.
Yeah. 'Cause sometimes people still see, pushing disabled people aside as the easier option. And, these are important stories that need to be told. So, if we start bringing more awareness to building accessibility into things from the start rather than something that we add on afterwards, we can really ensure that every voice is being heard.
Yeah. And just also hearing more interesting stories and interesting
Yep,
people and engaging with, art, which is so important.
exactly right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast and having this conversation. And I'm so excited for you because that's such a wonderful achievement to have your poetry collection re-released and have a new lease on life and to have that follow-up collection, fingers crossed. That's wonderful news.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Amra's Armchair Anecdotes. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more insights, stories and inspiration. From my armchair to yours, remember, every story begins with a single word.